Hi Dragonflies, it's Miss Elizabeth. Yesterday we talked about the different kinds of visitors that come to plants and collect nectar. And so that's what the flower gives to the visitor. But today what we're going to talk about is what the visitor does for the flower. So here it says visitors help plants by moving pollen from flower to flower. So remember a couple days ago we talked about the parts of the plant, and one of the parts of the plant is called the stamen. So it's hard to see a little bit on that one. So here, you can look right here. This is the stamen of the flower, and the stamen has pollen. So as a bee collects nectar, food for his honey, right? His body is covered with lots of little hairs. They look fuzzy. So the body gets covered in pollen, and so the stamen touches the body of the bee and the pollen rubs off onto the bee. So then the bee's done drinking at this flower, so he flies to another flower to collect some more nectar. And as it flies, it carries pollen to a new flower. So it has pollen on its back from the last one. So it lands, and the pollen on the bee's body rubs onto the stigma. So remember, there's the stigma and the stamens. So the stigma is what collects pollen to make a seed. So the bee goes into the flower, and new pollen from this flower's stamens rubs onto this bee. So as a bee flies from flower to flower, it's carrying different pollen to each flower. Some other visitors do the same thing. So this is a hummingbird, and this hummingbird likes to drink nectar from a fuchsia flower. It has pollen on its chest here from another fuchsia flower that it had visited earlier. As the bird drinks the nectar, the pollen on his feathers rubs onto the stigma here in the middle of the fuchsia flower. So he's bringing pollen from a different flower to this flower, so this flower can grow a seed. So this is an activity that you guys can do. This is a tulip here. And I don't know if you have any tulips around you, but you could look at other flowers as well if you go for a walk or you're visiting some container garden that has flowers in it. So what you do is you can watch for visitors and you can see it in action. You can find a flower that has stamens and a stigma that are easy to see. So remember, that's in the middle of the flower. So the petals are open so you can see inside. When the sun is out, you can sit down and you can wait for the insects to come. And if an insect comes, you can try to look closely and quietly to see if it has any pollen on its body. And then you can look inside and see what the bee or the other insect is doing inside the flower. Remember, if you don't bother the bees, they won't bother you. They're much more interested in the nectar that's in the flower than you. So when the insect flies away, you can look inside and see if it's left any pollen on the stigma of your flower. All right, so that's a fun activity that you guys can try out if you have some flowers in your area, and let us know if you find any visitors to the flowers near you. All right, Dragonflies, see you next time. Bye.